Hi and welcome back. Today I'm going to be sharing another sky practice with you. This time I want to paint a beautiful summer seascape, just a calm sea but focusing mostly on the important part, which is the sky. I just want to try and get that kind of the look of those soft wispy clouds against a beautiful cobalt blue summer sky. So I'm going to be using two colours for the sky. Raw sienna, which I've put on a very dilute amount just to give me some tone on the paper, onto the dry paper. And now this is Jackson's own brand cobalt blue, and it's a lovely, rich, transparent and granulating blue. It's a gorgeous colour. So I'm just scrubbing that across the paper, leaving unpainted areas of paper for my clouds. I'm trying to get some soft and hard edges, so that although it's going to be quite a soft sky, I want to still have a few harder edges just to give the eye something to look at and to focus and to give a bit of shape and form to the clouds. I'm using Suanders Waterford cold pressed paper. It's taped to my board with decorators masking tape, and my board's at an angle of about 45 degrees. You can see the paint is running down through the wet washes, so I'm using a clean damp brush to just remove that bead of water from my horizon and just to sort of continue with the sky. And I'm going to add some darker blue here and mix that in a bit across the sky just to get that slightly darker, richer blue across the top of the sky, with it sort of lighter down towards the horizon, because watercolour always dries about 30-40% lighter. So just a bit more colour now should blend and diffuse into the sky quite subtly, but just give me those extra just a little bit of extra zing to the sky. So I'm just softening around that slightly richer, drier pigmented area, and just bringing in and moving around the paint a little bit now with my flat brush, just to try and sort of add a few of those little smaller, wispier textured clouds across near the horizon where they're further away. Most of those will disappear into the wet wash as it gently diffuses, but that just gives me a little bit more perspective to my sky, with the larger clouds and the richer blue overhead and the paler horizon with smaller clouds. So that's it for my sky. Now the thing to do is to leave it to dry without touching it anymore, because otherwise it might get overworked and muddy, and it should just dry nicely. So I'm swishing across a bit of cobalt blue across the sea with my large Pro Art Ron Ranson hake brush. The sea's not important to me this time. It's the sky practice. I've not been able to do my usual daily sky practices because I've been quite busy with other things recently. So I'm trying to get back into my sky practices, and so the sea really, it's just something just to finish off this little demonstration, so that I don't just have a blank piece across the bottom, but I'm not really worried about it. I'm just going to make sure that it's a fairly straight horizon and then just leave the sea to dry. And you can see that I've just put a bit of that raw sienna across the sea in places, just to give it that slightly sort of greenish hue, and also to reflect the colours in the sky. And now with a clean damp flat brush, I'm just lifting out a bit of white, just to get a bit of light into the sea in preparation for finishing the painting off when it's completely dry. So here it is, completely dry. You can see how much lighter it's dried, but it's still looking very pretty. Now here I'm going to quickly neaten up the sea a bit, add a little bit of detail to finish it off. You can see I've put a piece of masking tape across my horizon line, just above the sea, and I want a really nice straight horizon line. So I'm just swooshing some paint across the tape with my flat brush. And this is a watery mixture or glaze of raw sienna, just to get some distinction into the distant sea, the distant water, and then pulling a bit of the cobalt blue, slightly richer, through across the tape. When I remove the tape, if I've stuck it down properly, I should get a lovely flat smooth horizon, which is what I'm looking for here. And now I'll just spend a little bit of time putting a bit of texture, a bit of light and a bit of dark with some Paynes grey a bit later into the sea, just to sort of finish this off, just to make it a sort of a more rounded scene and a seascape. With a scene like this, if you decide to have a go at something similar, you could of course put in a distant headland or two. You could put in some ships on the horizon, or maybe even sort of plan into the drawing and sketch out in pencil first a little yacht sort of scudding across the water. I think that would look quite nice. And this is just a bit of Paynes grey on the flat brush, just to add a bit of shadow towards the foreground and a bit of movement and life to the water. Horizontal strokes, pulling them backwards and forwards, varying the width of them a little bit, just to give some sort of, just a simple sort of loose suggestion of a flat, calm sea. I can soften out some of the harder marks, and what I'm doing here is creating a wet in wet environment so that these marks are sort of softening, and where there isn't any fresh paint on the old dry painting, I'm getting some slightly harder edges there. So I'm getting a nice sort of variety of marks across my water. And I'm happy with that so far, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed and going to peel off the masking tape. And yes, I like that. I really like the sort of the depth of colour that I've got in the distant water against that lighter area of sky. And just knocking back a little bit of those darker marks with a tissue, just carefully, again keeping it quite muted and soft. After all, this is a sky painting rather than a sea painting, and in order to draw a little bit more attention to this the sky, I'm going to paint in a few gulls. I'm going to keep them very indistinct and quite small with Paynes grey, and using my small calligraphy brush, which has a good point. You can use any small brush for this, rigger, detail brush, small round with a good point, anything that you can, as I say, get these tiny little lines just to indicate the gulls, but also to draw attention to the clouds in the sky. Sort of having them rising up and coming closer, and I say, I think that they just anchor the eye in the sky, if you see what I mean, as this is a sky painting. So now I'm peeling off the masking tape, pulling it away from the painting, so that if it was to tear the paper, it would tear away and not into the painting itself. Now I'm very pleased with this as my first sky practice for a little while. I'm going to try and get back into it, because I think it's a really good way of keeping yourself fresh, engaged and inspired. And also learning about all sorts of transferable skills that you can put into practice and into play in other parts of your landscape painting too, not just skies. It's a great way to loosen up as well, to try and paint skies sort of quickly and cleanly like this. If you look at the horizon line, the masking tape gave me a lovely, lovely straight line there. I'm really pleased with that, and I like the fact that the sea has got this lovely sort of slightly green glassy look to it, where it sort of counter changes against a very light sky. So thanks for watching. Please leave us a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, if you want to see more of these types of videos. Plenty about skies and all sorts of other landscapes. And also thank you so much to my wonderful Patreon group who support this channel. And I'll see you again soon, and happy painting. Bye.